From the torrential downpours that inundate coastal cities to the unprecedented storm surges that swallow entire communities, the specter of overwhelming waters looms larger than ever in our modern world. But what if this isn't a wholly new fear? What if the echoes of such cataclysms are woven into the very fabric of human history, preserved not in scientific journals, but in the deepest, most enduring stories of our ancestors? Across continents, from the sun-baked deserts of Mesopotamia to the misty fjords of Scandinavia, from the Amazon basin to the peaks of the Himalayas, cultures separated by vast oceans and countless generations share a common, chilling narrative: the Great Flood. Were these universal tales merely the fantastical imaginings of early civilizations, or were they profound, perhaps even inadvertent, warnings passed down through the mists of time? This documentary embarks on an extraordinary journey to confront this central question. We will delve into the universality of these deluge myths, from the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh in the biblical account of Noah's Ark, to the indigenous legends of the Maya in the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories. We will unearth the historical and geological context that may have inspired these narratives, examine the scientific evidence of past global and regional megafloods, and then starkly contrast these ancient fears with the escalating reality of our own climate crisis. Over 20 compelling sections, we will trace the chilling parallels between the ancient world's most devastating fears and our planet's modern predicament. Prepare to journey through forgotten civilizations, scrutinize scientific discoveries, and ultimately confront the most urgent challenge of our time. Are we destined to heed the ancient warnings, or ignore the gathering storm at our peril? For millennia, across continents and cultures, humanity has whispered tales of an impossible catastrophe, a great flood, a deluge that swallowed the world. From the scorching deserts of Mesopotamia to the icy fjords of Scandinavia, from the Amazon rainforests to the remote islands of the Pacific, the story is strikingly, profoundly similar. It speaks of a time when the heavens opened, the seas rose, and an angry, or perhaps sorrowful, force purged the earth. This isn't just a handful of isolated legends. It is a tapestry woven into the very fabric of human consciousness, with over 500 recorded flood myths found globally, each echoing a shared, primal fear and a breathtaking narrative of survival. Imagine a world without sophisticated communication, without shared texts or global networks. Yet in societies separated by thousands of miles and centuries, this same terrifying vision emerges: a world engulfed by water. Indigenous tribes in North America tell of waters rising to cover the highest peaks. Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime stories recount floods that carved out the landscape. The Dogon people of West Africa speak of a colossal ark carrying all life, while Polynesian myths describe a furious sea god submerging the land. These aren't mere campfire stories. They are profound cultural anchors, passed down through generations, often forming the bedrock of spiritual beliefs and societal structures. Why this astonishing ubiquity? Is it a collective memory of a shared cataclysm from humanity's deep past? A universal human response to the immense power of water, an archetype imprinted on our minds? Or could these ancient warnings, these dramatic depictions of global cleansing, be more than just myth? As we confront our own era of escalating climate chaos, with unprecedented floods, superstorms, and rising sea levels becoming the new normal, we are forced to ask, were these ancient tales merely stories, or profound, inadvertent warnings from our ancestors, echoing across the vast chasm of time, now ringing with unsettling prophecy? Join us as we embark on an extraordinary journey through these ancient narratives, unearthing the chilling parallels and startling implications. We will delve into their origins, explore their intricate details, and ultimately confront the profound question they pose for our future. Our journey into the heart of ancient flood narratives begins in Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, often called the cradle of civilization. It was here, nearly 4,000 years ago, that humanity first recorded its great stories on clay tablets, giving us an unparalleled glimpse into the minds of our earliest ancestors. Among these precious artifacts, excavated from the ruins of ancient cities like Nineveh, lies one of the oldest surviving works of literature, the Epic of Gilgamesh. More than a tale of a hero king seeking immortality, this epic contains a chillingly familiar account of a world-ending flood. Our protagonist, Gilgamesh, on his quest for eternal life, eventually finds Utnapishtim, the only man to have survived the great deluge, and, as a reward, was granted immortality by the gods. Utnapishtim's narrative is startlingly vivid. He recounts how the gods, weary of humanity's noise and wickedness, decided to wipe out all life. But one god, Ea, took pity on Utnapishtim, a devout man, and warned him in a dream. Ea instructed him to abandon his possessions, tear down his house, and build a massive boat, precisely measured to save his family, craftsmen, and the seed of all living things. This colossal vessel, sealed with bitumen, was prepared amidst the scorn of his neighbors, who ridiculed his seemingly mad endeavor. Then came the storm. Utnapishtim describes 6 days and 6 nights of torrential rain and howling winds, of a tempest so violent it could destroy a mountain. The entire world was plunged into darkness. The Deste Chakawera, face of the land, became a flat roof, and even the gods themselves, terrified by their own creation, crouched like dogs in the heavens. On the 7th day, the storm subsided, revealing a landscape of utter desolation. Humanity had been turned to clay. Utnapishtim gazed upon the empty, silent waters, landing eventually on Mount Nimish. He released a dove, then a swallow, both returning. Finally, a raven flew off and did not return, signaling the receding waters. He then emerged, offering a sacrifice to the gods, who, now filled with remorse, granted him and his wife eternal life. The details of this ancient Sumerian and Babylonian account, penned thousands of years before other notable versions, present an astonishing precursor, setting a foundational template for the catastrophic flood memory that would echo through civilizations for millennia to come. From the ancient Mesopotamian plains, our narrative thread carries us forward to a story that has transcended its origins, weaving itself into the very fabric of global culture and faith, the biblical account of Noah's Ark. Found in the book of Genesis, this narrative is arguably the most widely recognized flood myth in the world, a story taught in homes, schools, and places of worship, its imagery ingrained in the collective consciousness. The Genesis account, while bearing striking thematic and structural similarities to Utnapishtim's tale, carries its own unique weight and profound moral implications. Here, the divine architect of the flood is not a pantheon of squabbling deities, but a singular, omnipotent God, deeply grieved by humanity's rampant wickedness and corruption. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. Yet amidst this despair, one man, Noah, found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Noah is commanded to build an ark of gopher wood, precise in its dimensions, 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high, a colossal vessel designed not for sailing but for floating. He is to bring his family, along with 2 of every kind of unclean animal and 7 pairs of every clean animal, to preserve life on earth. For 40 days and 40 nights the rains fall, and all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, submerging the highest mountains. The narrative emphasizes the totality of the destruction. Every living thing that moved on land perished: birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Genesis chapter 7, verse 21. After 150 days, the waters begin to recede. Like Utnapishtim, Noah sends out birds, a raven, then a dove, which returns with an olive leaf, a universal symbol of hope and new beginnings. Finally, the ark rests on the mountains of Ararat, and life begins anew. God establishes a covenant with Noah and all living creatures, promising never again to destroy the earth by flood, sealing this promise with the vibrant arc of a rainbow across the sky. This powerful narrative, with its themes of divine judgment, redemption, and the enduring promise of hope, has shaped art, literature, and ethical thought for thousands of years, continuing to resonate deeply, especially as we confront environmental crises that test the very resilience of our planet. Our journey through ancient deluges now transports us to the classical world of ancient Greece, a land of gods and mortals, where human hubris frequently met divine retribution. Here, among the towering myths of Olympus, we find another powerful flood narrative, the story of Deucalion and Pyrrha. While the Mesopotamian and biblical accounts speak of divine sorrow or a multi-god pantheon's weariness, the Greek flood is explicitly an act of swift, brutal punishment from Zeus, the king of the gods, angered by the extreme wickedness and impiety of humanity during the Bronze Age. The people of that era, described by the Roman poet Ovid, had descended into depravity, engaging in violence and disregarding the gods. Zeus, disguised as a mortal, witnessed their atrocities firsthand and declared that the race of men must be destroyed. All the Olympians agreed. Zeus unleashed torrents of rain from the heavens, Poseidon unchained the rivers and seas, and the earth was consumed by a universal flood. But amidst this divine wrath, one man and woman were spared. Deucalion, son of Prometheus, who famously brought fire to mankind, and his wife Pyrrha, daughter of Epimetheus and Pandora. They were righteous, pious, and just, qualities that set them apart in a corrupt world. Prometheus, foreseeing the catastrophe, warned his son Deucalion and instructed him to build a wooden chest or ark. For 9 days and nights, the chest was tossed upon the relentless waves. When the waters finally began to recede, Deucalion and Pyrrha were the sole survivors, their simple vessel coming to rest on the peak of Mount Parnassus, which soared above the submerged world. They were isolated, heartbroken, and utterly alone, the last vestiges of humanity. Praying to the goddess Themis for guidance on how to repopulate the earth, they received a cryptic oracle: "Throw the bones of your great mother over your shoulders." Initially bewildered, Deucalion eventually understood. Our great mother is the earth, and her bones are the stones. With faith, they cast stones behind them. Miraculously, the stones thrown by Deucalion transformed into men, and those thrown by Pyrrha transformed into women, thus repopulating the earth. This unique and symbolic act of creation, born from the very essence of the earth itself, reflects a distinctly Greek worldview, a cyclical nature of destruction and rebirth, where even the most catastrophic events lead to new beginnings, shaped by divine will and human interpretation. Leaving the sun-drenched Mediterranean, we journey north to the frigid, dramatic landscapes of Norse mythology, a world shaped by ice and fire, giants and gods. Here, the concept of a primordial deluge takes on a profoundly different, almost cosmic significance. Unlike the punitive floods of Mesopotamia, the Bible, or Greece, the Norse flood is not an act of divine wrath against wicked humanity, but an intrinsic, fundamental event in the very act of creation itself, a chaotic birth rather than a cleansing destruction. At the dawn of time, before Odin and his brothers shaped the world, there was Ginnungagap, the yawning void, bordered by Muspelheim, the land of fire, and Niflheim, the land of ice. From the melting ice of Niflheim emerged Ymir, the first and largest of the frost giants, and from his sweat and body parts, more giants were born. Ymir sustained himself by drinking the milk of the primeval cow Audumbla. However, the world remained largely unformed, filled with colossal, unwieldy beings. It was Odin, Vili, and Ve, the first of the Aesir gods, who decided to bring order to this chaotic existence. They slew Ymir, a momentous act that unleashed a cataclysmic flood. From Ymir's gaping wounds, an immeasurable torrent of blood gushed forth, so vast and violent that it became the seas and oceans, submerging almost all of creation. This blood deluge drowned nearly the entire race of frost giants, an unintended consequence of the gods' creative violence. Only one giant, Bergelmir, managed to survive. He, along with his wife, found refuge in a primitive vessel crafted from a hollowed-out tree trunk drifting upon the sanguineous waves. From them, a new lineage of frost giants would eventually spring. With the primordial waters settled, Odin and his brothers then used Ymir's immense body to construct the cosmos. His flesh became the earth, his bones the mountains, his hair the trees, his skull the dome of the sky, and his brains the clouds. This Norse flood, therefore, serves not as a moral lesson or a divine judgment, but as the very foundation of the world as we know it, a violent, bloody act of cosmic engineering. It is a powerful reminder of nature's brutal, indifferent beauty, where destruction is not merely an end, but the raw, necessary ingredient for new beginnings, echoing the dramatic forces that constantly shape our planet. Crossing oceans and continents once more, we arrive in the Americas, a land rich with ancient spiritual traditions and complex cosmologies. Here, among the vibrant civilizations of Mesoamerica and the enduring wisdom of Native American tribes, flood myths take on a distinct character, often entwined with elaborate cycles of creation, destruction, and recreation. These are not always singular events, but rather phases in a grand cosmic narrative, revealing deep insights into humanity's relationship with nature and the divine. For the Maya, whose intricate calendar system tracked vast epochs, the current world is not the first, nor will it be the last. Their sacred text, the Popol Vuh, describes previous attempts by the gods to create humanity. In one such cycle, the wooden people were crafted, but they lacked souls, minds, and gratitude. Displeased, the gods sent a devastating flood, causing torrents of resinous rain that wiped out this failed creation. Those who survived were transformed into monkeys, a poignant reminder of humanity's past imperfections and the gods' power to reshape life. This Mayan deluge wasn't just water. It was often accompanied by terrifying beasts and cosmic upheaval, setting the stage for the next, more successful creation. Further north, the Hopi people of the American Southwest recount a series of worlds or ages, each ending in a cataclysm. Their flood myth, one of several destructive events, tells of a time when humanity became corrupt and forgot the Creator. The good-hearted people were warned by a spider-woman and guided by an ant people chief to seek refuge in vast underground kivas or ant hills. There, they remained safe, while the world above was cleansed by a great flood. Emerging after the waters receded, they embarked on epic migrations, seeking their rightful place in the fourth world we now inhabit. This flood wasn't an end, but a passage, a purification that allowed for a new, more evolved humanity to emerge. These Mesoamerican and Native American narratives emphasize cyclical time, the transformative power of divine intervention, and the profound connection between human morality and environmental stability. They serve as potent reminders that our actions have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for the very fabric of existence, and that destruction can often be a painful, yet necessary, precursor to renewal. Our global exploration of flood myths now turns eastward to the ancient and venerable civilizations of Asia. In China and India, two cradles of profound philosophy and monumental history, flood narratives unfold with unique cultural nuances, often emphasizing not just divine wrath, but the heroic efforts of individuals or the strategic interventions of deities to control and tame the chaotic power of water, bringing order out of absolute deluge. In ancient China, the story of Yu the Great stands as a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. China's early history is punctuated by accounts of devastating floods from the Yellow River, so severe they threatened to obliterate nascent civilization. The Great Flood of Gunyu, as it's known, describes a cataclysm that lasted for generations. After the failed efforts of his father, Gun, who tried to dam the waters, only for them to burst, Yu took a radically different approach. Instead of resisting the waters, Yu spent 13 years meticulously dredging channels, deepening riverbeds, and building canals to guide the flood waters safely to the sea. He worked tirelessly, often transforming into a dragon to dig more effectively, passing his own home 3 times without entering. So dedicated was he to his task. His heroic efforts not only saved the people, but also established the first Chinese dynasty, the Xia, and cemented the principle that effective governance involves harmonizing with nature, not merely conquering it. This myth speaks to a deeply ingrained Chinese value of order, collective effort, and the transformative power of leadership. Journeying to ancient India, we encounter another powerful flood myth, prominently featured in the Matsya Purana and the Shatapatha Brahmana. Here, the deluge is not a punishment for human wickedness, but a cosmic reset, a prelude to a new creation. Manu, the progenitor of humankind, is a wise and pious sage. One day, while washing his hands in a river, he finds a tiny fish that pleads for his protection. Manu shelters the fish, which miraculously grows larger and larger, eventually becoming the colossal Matsya, an avatar of Lord Vishnu himself. Matsya warns Manu of an impending, cataclysmic flood that will destroy all life. He instructs Manu to build a massive ark and gather pairs of every animal, as well as the seeds of all plants, to preserve life. When the flood arrives, Matsya, in his giant form, guides Manu's ark through the tumultuous waters, towing it with a cosmic rope to a safe mountain peak, often identified as the Himalayas. After the flood recedes, Manu performs a sacrifice, and from the clarified butter, a woman emerges, becoming his wife and the mother of a new humanity. Both Chinese and Indian narratives, while distinct, underscore a profound understanding of natural forces and the vital human or divine role in bringing forth order and renewal from the chaos of the flood. From the cradle of Mesopotamia to the distant shores of the Americas, from the icy realms of Norse creation to the wisdom of ancient Asia, we have traversed a breathtaking landscape of human imagination and collective memory. We've witnessed gods, wrath, and cosmic birth, heroic struggles, and humble survival. But what emerges most strikingly from this journey is not their differences, but their profound, undeniable commonalities. These are not disparate, disconnected tales. They are echoes, reverberating across cultures and millennia, pointing towards something deeply embedded in the human experience. The archetypes are stark: a world consumed by water, a divine or cosmic force initiating the deluge, and a chosen few, often a single righteous family or a specific pair, warned of the impending doom. They are instructed to build a vessel, an ark or chest, to preserve life. Animals, and the seed of all living things, are consistently part of this salvation. The flood is depicted as a total annihilation, wiping the slate clean, yet always leading to a new beginning, a repopulation, a rebirth. And almost universally, a symbol of hope, a dove, a rainbow, new land, marks the end of the cataclysm. These recurring motifs transcend language, geography, and religious dogma, forming a universal grammar of catastrophe and resilience. So, what are these echoes telling us? Do they point to a singular, forgotten global flood event from humanity's deep past, perhaps a massive melting of ice sheets at the end of the last ice age, which imprinted itself on the collective memory of early civilizations? Geologists and archaeologists continue to unearth evidence of localized, catastrophic floods that could have inspired such enduring narratives. Or are these myths powerful archetypes, innate human responses to the terrifying power of water, reflecting a primal fear of chaos and an enduring hope for renewal? Perhaps it is both, the fusion of real, localized deluges magnified through generations of storytelling, imbued with spiritual meaning and shaped by universal human fears and aspirations. As we now stand at the precipice of our own climate crisis, facing unprecedented rising sea levels, intensifying storms, and catastrophic floods on a scale unseen in modern history. These ancient warnings take on a terrifying new urgency. Are these ancient myths merely fantastical tales or profound inadvertent warnings from our ancestors? Warnings not just about the power of water, but about human hubris, our destructive tendencies, and the delicate balance between humanity and the natural world. The question these myths ultimately pose is not just about our past, but about our present and the future we are actively shaping. The echoes are undeniable. The lessons, perhaps, were always meant for us. For millennia, the stories of a great flood have been woven into the very fabric of human civilization, passed down through generations, seemingly defying logic. But what if these tales, rich with allegory and cosmic drama, were not entirely born of imagination? What if the echoes of genuine, cataclysmic events reverberated through the mists of time, shaping the collective memory of humanity? Our journey now shifts from myth to the tangible, from oral tradition to the solid evidence etched into the earth itself. Geologists and archaeologists have unearthed compelling clues that massive, albeit localized, floods have indeed played a profound role in shaping our planet's history and the trajectory of early human societies. We are talking about events of astonishing scale, paleofloods that scoured landscapes, ancient lakes that burst their natural dams, and rivers that seasonally swelled into inland seas. Imagine the awe and terror of our ancestors witnessing such a deluge. A river, usually a source of life, transforms into an unstoppable churning monster, inundating vast plains, swallowing villages, and reshaping the land as far as the eye could see. To a small, isolated community, this regional cataclysm would have felt like the end of the world, a global inundation consuming everything known. Sediment layers buried miles deep or exposed in canyon walls tell this silent story. Here, a layer of fine, silt-rich soil, indicative of a slow, sustained flow. There, a chaotic jumble of coarse gravel and boulders, undeniable proof of a sudden, violent surge. Archaeological digs, often in the very cradles of civilization like Mesopotamia, frequently uncover evidence of ancient settlements abruptly buried under thick layers of silt and clay, sometimes several meters deep, devoid of human activity for generations following. These aren't just floodplains. These are sites suggesting rapid, devastating inundations that brought an end to an era. Could the catastrophic breaching of an ancient lake, the sudden shifting of a river's course, or an unprecedented period of torrential rain have been the spark? These geological scars, these layers of forgotten destruction, offer a chilling counterpoint to the fantastical elements of myth. They suggest that while the divine wrath and global scale might have been embellishments, the profound trauma of water's unchecked power was terrifyingly real, etched not just into the land, but into the very psyche of our ancestors, waiting to be retold. Among the myriad of past cataclysms, one particular scientific hypothesis stands out as a compelling, if controversial, candidate for inspiring some of the most enduring flood narratives: the Black Sea deluge. This theory, championed by geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman, paints a dramatic picture of an event that occurred approximately 700-600 years ago, around 5600 BCE. At that time, the Black Sea was not the saltwater body we know today, but a much smaller, isolated freshwater lake, significantly below global sea levels. Its shores were home to early Neolithic farming communities, thriving on fertile land. Meanwhile, the Mediterranean Sea, fed by melting glaciers at the end of the last ice age, was steadily rising. What separated these two bodies of water was a narrow land bridge, the Bosphorus Strait. Imagine the tension building as the Mediterranean's waters crept higher, pressing against this natural barrier. Then, the inevitable. Ryan and Pittman proposed that the land bridge gave way not in a trickle, but in a catastrophic, sudden inundation. A torrent of salt water, potentially 200 times more powerful than Niagara Falls, surged through the newly formed strait. It wasn't a slow creep. It was a devastating flood that, according to some models, could have raised the Black Sea's level by hundreds of feet, expanding its surface area by more than a third, all within a matter of months, perhaps even weeks. The roar of the water, the relentless advance, would have been unimaginable. Evidence supporting this theory includes sonar mapping of submerged ancient shorelines far below the current sea level, revealing the remnants of riverbeds and coastal features now hundreds of feet underwater. Sediment cores retrieved from the Black Sea floor reveal a sharp transition from freshwater organisms to saltwater species, deposited within a geologically sudden time frame. While still debated, the Black Sea deluge offers a concrete mechanism for how a regional catastrophe involving immense water and forced displacement could have been experienced by early agricultural societies. For those who survived, fleeing inland, the memory of their lost world, swallowed by an encroaching sea, would have been a story too profound, too terrifying, not to tell a story that could very well have become one of humanity's primal warnings. Yet even the Black Sea deluge pales in comparison to some of the truly colossal floods unleashed by the planet at the end of the last ice age. This was a time of epic climatic shifts, as vast sheets of ice, miles thick, began their slow retreat. But their melting wasn't always a gradual process. Sometimes it was a terrifying release of pent-up energy, carving scars into the very face of the earth that remain visible to this day. Consider the Missoula floods, a series of cataclysms that repeatedly ravaged what is now the Pacific Northwest of North America. For thousands of years, an enormous glacial lake, Lake Missoula, held back by an ice dam, gathered an immense volume of water, more than all the Great Lakes combined. When that ice dam inevitably failed, the result was a Jokulhlaup, a glacial outburst flood of unimaginable proportions. A wall of water, traveling at speeds of up to 60 miles per hour, miles wide and hundreds of feet deep, would have thundered across the landscape. This wasn't just a river overflowing. It was an inland tsunami, tearing through bedrock, plucking away hillsides, and transporting boulders the size of houses for hundreds of miles. These repeated deluges sculpted what we now call the channeled scablands of Washington state, a truly alien landscape of dry waterfalls, enormous ripple marks etched into the earth, and braided channels carved out of solid basalt. The sheer erosive power of these floods defies easy comprehension, a stark testament to water's raw force. Similar, though often smaller, Jokulhlaups burst from beneath glaciers in Iceland, leaving their own distinct imprints. While these events occurred long before complex human civilizations, their scale underscores the planet's capacity for devastating floods, floods that could dwarf any human experience and become the stuff of primordial dread. They are a potent reminder that our world, even in its ancient past, was a dynamic, sometimes terrifying place, a stage for natural events so immense they could easily feed the seeds of world-ending legends. Beyond the grand, epoch-ending floods of the Ice Age, or the hypothesized Black Sea deluge, lay a different category of localized, yet equally devastating, water-related catastrophes that could have profoundly impacted ancient communities and ignited the flames of myth-making. We're talking about mega-tsunamis, volcanic eruptions that triggered mud flows, and catastrophic river floods that, while regional, felt utterly global to those who endured them. Imagine an ancient coastal village living in harmony with the sea. Suddenly, without warning, the ocean itself transforms into a terrifying, towering wall of water, perhaps triggered by a distant earthquake or even a massive landslide. The Lisbon earthquake and tsunami of 1755, or the Boxing Day tsunami of 2004, offer modern glimpses into such horror, demonstrating their immense destructive power and vast reach. For ancient peoples without scientific explanation, such an event would surely be interpreted as divine wrath, a complete overturning of the natural order. Consider volcanic eruptions. Not just the lava and ash, but the rapid melting of glaciers on stratovolcanoes, unleashing colossal lahars, fast-moving, destructive mud flows that bury everything in their path. The 1883 eruption of Krakatoa, for instance, generated tsunamis that killed tens of thousands, wiping entire islands clean. For those who witnessed the sea disappear, then return with unimaginable fury, or watched a mountain dissolve into a river of mud, these were events that erased their world. Even seemingly mundane river floods, when they reached unprecedented scales, could be truly apocalyptic. Rivers like the Yellow River in China, often called China's Sorrow, have historically changed course violently, displacing millions and causing famine. For a Bronze Age farmer, seeing their entire livelihood, their home, their entire known world submerged and swept away by an uncontrollable river, the experience was no less profound than a global deluge. These devastating, albeit regional events, would have been seared into the collective memory. Through generations of oral storytelling, fear and trauma naturally amplify details, personalize gods, and expand localized destruction into tales of a world-ending flood, transforming a potent, regional warning into a universal myth. So, if science offers compelling evidence for localized, devastating deluges, then the question shifts: why did these specific stories endure? Why did they globalize in human consciousness, morphing into universally recognized flood myths? The answer lies not just in geology, but deep within the complex tapestry of human anthropology and psychology. Beyond the physical catastrophe, there's a profound human need to make sense of chaos, to find meaning in destruction, and to understand our place in a world of immense natural power. Flood myths are often more than just historical accounts. They are profound narratives of collective trauma, survival, and rebirth. They tap into an archetypal fear of being overwhelmed, of the world returning to a primal, watery chaos. Think of Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. The flood myth is often the ultimate test, a purification, a reset button for humanity. The survivors, often deemed righteous, are tasked with rebuilding, carrying the burden and wisdom of the old world into the new. This narrative structure gives immense meaning to unimaginable loss. From the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical account of Noah, from the ancient Greek Deucalion to the indigenous legends of the Maya, the Lakota, and countless Aboriginal Australian groups, the themes resonate: divine displeasure, a corrupt world, a warning, a chosen few, a vessel, and the promise of a new beginning. These stories function as powerful cultural anchors. They provide a framework for understanding human morality, the consequences of imbalance, and the importance of resilience. They teach lessons about the fragility of life and the overwhelming, capricious power of nature. Moreover, the act of storytelling itself is a vital human coping mechanism. Passing down these sagas of destruction and survival allows a community to process collective grief, reinforce social cohesion, and transmit essential survival knowledge across generations. The vivid imagery, the dramatic tension, the moral lessons, all contribute to their enduring power. These myths persist because they speak to our deepest fears and our most profound hopes, offering not just a memory of the past, but a timeless reflection on humanity's relationship with a powerful, sometimes terrifying, natural world. For millennia, the flood narrative was a story of the past, a warning from distant ancestors, a reflection of nature's ancient, untamed power. But what if that ancient warning is becoming startlingly relevant again, not as a myth, but as a chilling reality? What if we, humanity, are now inadvertently writing the script for our own modern deluge? Our journey now pivots dramatically from the ancient past to the urgent present, to the stark reality of anthropogenic climate change. For the first time in geological history, a single species, us, is rapidly and fundamentally altering the very systems that govern our planet's climate. Since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, our relentless burning of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, has pumped unprecedented quantities of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. These gases trap heat, acting like a thick blanket around the Earth, causing global temperatures to rise at an alarming rate. This isn't just about a few degrees on a thermometer. It's about a complete retuning of Earth's delicate climate symphony. Warming oceans expand, glaciers and ice sheets melt at an accelerated pace, and atmospheric moisture content increases. The predictable patterns that underpinned civilizations for thousands of years are breaking down. We are seeing changes in decades that historically took millennia. Scientists globally agree the planet is warming and human activity is the undeniable primary driver. The evidence is overwhelming, from rising sea levels to melting ice caps, from ocean acidification to increasingly severe weather events. This warming world sets the stage for our own modern deluges. It's not a single, sudden biblical flood, but a relentless barrage of intensified weather extremes. We are already witnessing the consequences. Unprecedented heat waves, prolonged droughts, and crucially for our narrative, more frequent and powerful floods. The very stories our ancestors told, born of a fear of nature's wrath, now take on a terrifying new dimension, as that wrath is amplified by our own actions. The question is no longer whether we can survive nature's power, but whether we can survive the consequences of our own influence on it. One of the most insidious and irreversible consequences of our warming world is the relentless creep of rising sea levels. It's a seemingly slow process, often measured in millimeters per year, yet its cumulative impact is already proving devastating, threatening to redefine the very geography of our planet and displace millions. This isn't a future threat. It's a present reality, a modern deluge unfolding in slow motion, yet accelerating with alarming speed. As the planet warms, two primary factors contribute to this rise: thermal expansion. As ocean water heats up, it expands, occupying more space, and the melting of glaciers and ice sheets, pouring vast quantities of fresh water into the oceans. The small island nations of the Pacific, like Kiribati and Tuvalu, are on the front lines, already losing land, facing saltwater intrusion into their freshwater supplies, and contemplating mass relocation. Coastal megacities like Miami, Jakarta, and Venice grapple with increasingly frequent, sunny day flooding, where high tides alone bring the ocean into their streets, even without a storm. The impact is far-reaching. Coastal ecosystems, vital nurseries for marine life and natural buffers against storms, are being overwhelmed. Mangrove forests drown, coral reefs are bleached and submerged, and delicate wetlands are irrevocably altered. Infrastructure built for a different climate, roads, ports, sewage systems, power plants, is now vulnerable, facing saltwater corrosion and inundation. Agricultural lands along coastlines are becoming salinized, rendering them infertile and destroying livelihoods. The human cost is immense, creating a new class of climate refugees, forced to abandon ancestral homes and ways of life that have endured for centuries. This isn't merely about losing beachfront property. It's about losing entire cultures, histories, and national identities. What was once terra firma becomes ocean, irrevocably. The tide is not just rising, it is erasing, demanding a reckoning with how and where humanity chooses to live on a planet undergoing profound human-induced transformation. The ancient fear of a world swallowed by water is no longer a myth, but a meteorological forecast. As sea levels rise, the other terrifying face of our modern deluge emerges. A world where the very air and oceans are weaponized into more frequent, more powerful, and more destructive storms. A warmer planet is a more energetic planet, and that excess energy fuels a new era of superstorms and monsoon madness, making the ancient tales of divine fury feel hauntingly prescient. Here's how it works. Warmer ocean waters provide more fuel for hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones, allowing them to intensify rapidly and sustain their strength for longer. A warmer atmosphere holds more moisture, leading to unprecedented deluges of rainfall, transforming once manageable storms into catastrophic inland flood events. We are witnessing atmospheric rivers delivering incredible volumes of water, turning droughts into floods in a matter of days. The very mechanisms of nature's weather patterns are being turbocharged by human emissions. Recall the devastation of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, or the recent super typhoons that have ravaged the Philippines, displacing millions and causing billions in damage. Think of the relentless, record-breaking monsoon floods that have gripped South Asia, particularly in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, destroying crops, homes, and lives on an annual basis, far surpassing historical averages. These aren't just isolated incidents. They are becoming the new normal, each event pushing the boundaries of what was once considered extreme. The consequences are staggering. Entire cities are submerged. Infrastructure crumbles. Clean water sources are contaminated, and disease outbreaks proliferate. The economic toll is immense, but the human suffering is immeasurable. Lives lost, livelihoods destroyed, communities shattered. These modern deluges are stark reminders of our profound vulnerability. Yet, unlike the ancient past, this time, the hand guiding the fury is undeniably our own. The warnings of our ancestors may have spoken of a distant, mythic past, but the intensifying storms and rising waters of today are a clear and present danger, a dramatic, undeniable consequence of our choices. The ancient world spoke of a singular, cataclysmic deluge, but today, the warnings are less monolithic, more insidious. They arrive in sudden, violent bursts, often without mercy, transforming familiar cityscapes into raging torrents. We are witnessing an alarming surge in localized, rapid-onset flash floods, a relentless assault on our urban bastions. Consider the horrifying events that unfolded in July 2021 across Western Europe. In Germany's Ahr Valley, tranquil rivers became monstrous, churning brown walls of water, claiming over 180 lives and wiping entire villages from the map in mere hours. In Belgium, similar scenes of devastation played out as unexpected deluges tore through communities, overwhelming centuries-old infrastructure. These weren't coastal surges or river overflows after weeks of rain. These were instant floods, triggered by unprecedented downpours that simply had nowhere to go. Our modern cities, marvels of engineering and human ingenuity, are paradoxically vulnerable. Expansive stretches of concrete and asphalt impervious surfaces deny the earth its natural ability to absorb water. Rainwater, instead of soaking into soil, races across rooftops, streets, and parking lots, gathering momentum and volume. Our sophisticated drainage systems, designed for a predictable past, are now routinely overwhelmed. Pipes burst, culverts choke, and subterranean networks become pressurized conduits of destruction. In places like New York City, residents have witnessed subway stations transform into waterfalls, streets into rivers, and basement apartments into death traps, as happened tragically during Hurricane Ida's remnants in September 2021. This isn't just about more rain. It's about intense rain. Climate change is fueling a dramatic increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme rainfall events globally. A storm that might have brought an inch of rain over a day now delivers 3 inches in an hour. The sheer volume and velocity of this water can rip through neighborhoods, overturn vehicles, and collapse buildings with terrifying speed. It's a stark reminder of nature's raw power, not in some distant wilderness, but right on our doorsteps, in the heart of our carefully constructed civilization. The vulnerability is not just physical. It's a systemic failure to anticipate and adapt to a fundamentally altered hydrological cycle. As the waters recede, they leave behind not just physical ruin, but a chilling question. How many more times can our cities endure such sudden, devastating deluges before the very fabric of urban life begins to unravel? For generations, civil engineers, urban planners, and insurance actuaries relied on a crucial metric, the 100-year flood. This wasn't a prediction that such a flood would occur precisely once a century, but rather a statistical probability, a flood with a 1% chance of occurring in any given year. It was the benchmark against which dams were built, levees designed, and communities zoned. It was our statistical shield against the wrath of the waters. But that shield, once sturdy, is now shattering under the relentless barrage of a changing climate. Today, the 100-year flood has become a cruel anachronism, a ghost of a past that no longer exists. Consider Houston, Texas, a city tragically familiar with water's fury. Between 2015 and 2017 alone, Houston endured 3 500-year flood events: the Memorial Day flood, the Tax Day flood, and then, most devastatingly, Hurricane Harvey. Harvey alone delivered an astonishing 50 inches of rain in some areas, an event so rare it was statistically considered a 1,000-year flood. Yet it happened, and it wasn't an isolated incident. Across the globe, from the catastrophic floods in eastern Australia in 2022 and 2023, where communities faced repeated, once-in-a-century deluges, to the unprecedented scale of the Mississippi River floods over the past decade, we are witnessing a complete redefinition of what constitutes extreme. This isn't just bad luck. It's a systemic shift driven by a warming planet. Warmer air holds more moisture, leading to more intense precipitation. Melting glaciers and ice sheets contribute to rising sea levels, making coastal storm surges even more destructive. Our traditional understanding of flood frequency, based on historical data, is no longer valid. Infrastructure designed for old probabilities is now hopelessly inadequate. Roads, bridges, and even entire communities, once deemed safe, now lie precariously within expanded flood zones. The economic toll is astronomical, the human cost immeasurable. Homes lose value, insurance becomes unaffordable, and the very concept of permanent residency in certain areas becomes a gamble against increasingly frequent statistical impossibilities. The 100-year flood no longer represents a rare outlier. It is becoming a disturbingly common occurrence, a stark siren warning that our planet's hydrological rhythms have fundamentally changed. We are living in a new reality, one where the whispers of warning from the past feel disturbingly close to the shouts of the present. As we grapple with these unprecedented deluges, the ancient flood myths echo with renewed significance. Were these tales passed down through countless generations, from Gilgamesh's epic journey to Noah's Ark, from the Hopi people's emergence story to the Hindu legend of Manu, merely fanciful fables? Or do they represent something far more profound, humanity's collective ancestral memory, a potent warning etched into our cultural DNA? While not literal prophecies of future events, these stories may well encapsulate a deep, inherent understanding of environmental vulnerability. Imagine early human civilizations, often settled along fertile river valleys or coastlines, suddenly confronted by truly catastrophic natural phenomena. A glacial dam bursts, unleashing an inland tsunami. A massive river swells beyond all known boundaries after prolonged, relentless rains. A tsunamic wave, triggered by a distant earthquake, engulfs coastal settlements. Some scientists, like marine geologist William Ryan and geoarchaeologist Walter Pittman, have even theorized about a sudden flooding of the Black Sea around 7,500 years ago, an event that could have displaced communities and inspired dramatic oral histories. These were not scientific observations in our modern sense, but they were profound experiences. The utter helplessness in the face of nature's overwhelming power, the scale of destruction, the sheer finality of water consuming everything, these experiences would have been seared into the collective consciousness. And how better to preserve such a vital, terrifying lesson than through storytelling? Through myth, ancient peoples encoded their knowledge of a planet capable of both life-giving sustenance and devastating destruction. They understood that the earth and its waters held an inherent power that could erase civilizations if not respected. These narratives served as a form of cultural memory, a communal recollection of vulnerability and resilience, a cautionary tale to future generations about the delicate balance of existence. They are whispers from the past, reminding us that we are not the first to face the fury of the waters, nor will we be the last if we fail to heed their timeless warnings. The whispers from the past, embedded in ancient flood myths, find a startling echo in the shouts of the present. Our ancestors, through oral tradition and cautionary tales, preserved the memory of nature's formidable power. Today, we possess something they could only dream of: sophisticated science, predictive models, and irrefutable data. The warnings are no longer metaphorical. They are precise, stark, and delivered with unprecedented urgency by the world's leading climate scientists. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, a collective of thousands of experts, issues reports that are less about prophecy and more about prognosis. They detail accelerating sea level rise, predicting that coastal cities could face inundation within decades. They forecast more frequent and intense heat waves, droughts, and critically, more extreme precipitation events, the very flash floods and, beyond 100-year, deluges we are already witnessing. Satellite data maps the retreat of glaciers and ice sheets. Ocean buoys record rising temperatures and acidifying waters. Every data point is a scientific warning, a modern-day oracle speaking of a future shaped by the choices we make today. Unlike our ancient forebears, whose only response was often flight or prayer, we have the capacity to act. Our imperative is clear. We must not only adapt to the changes already underway, but also mitigate future catastrophes. This means reimagining our urban planning, investing in resilient infrastructure like permeable pavements and expanded green spaces, and fortifying our coastal defenses. It demands a global transition to renewable energy, drastically cutting greenhouse gas emissions. It requires international cooperation on a scale never before seen to protect the most vulnerable and to heal the planet that sustains us. The deluge is here, not as a single biblical event, but as a relentless, escalating series of challenges. The question is no longer if, but how we respond. Will we listen to the scientific warnings as intently as our ancestors listened to the terrifying tales of their own past? Will we transform this moment of crisis into a catalyst for profound change? Our legacy, our survival, hinges on our willingness to not just hear the deluges, both ancient and modern, but to act upon their urgent, undeniable message. The floodgates of change are open, and it is now our responsibility to navigate the course. We have journeyed through millennia, from the enigmatic echoes of ancient deluge myths etched in clay and carried on oral traditions, to the stark, undeniable realities of our planet's modern climate crisis. Our exploration has revealed a profound and often unsettling connection between humanity's earliest experiences of catastrophic change and its most pressing contemporary challenges. Whether interpreted as literal histories of forgotten cataclysms or as powerful allegories of nature's formidable power, these ancient stories serve as enduring testaments to our shared vulnerability and the timeless imperative to respect the forces that govern our world. Wisdom of our ancestors, passed down through myth, was their way of encoding warnings, lessons learned through hardship. Today, we stand at a critical juncture. We no longer rely solely on ancient tales. We possess a wealth of scientific data, predictive models, and the technological capacity to understand and respond to the rising waters. The question is no longer, deaf, the warnings exist, but deaf, we are truly listening. As sea levels rise, extreme weather events intensify, and vulnerable communities face repeated displacement, the modern deluge calls for more than just understanding. It demands action. This shared planet is our only ark. What role will you play in safeguarding its future?